On this week's Carrier Wrap, we take a look back at some of the top video highlights from the recent CCA annual convention. Well, thanks for joining us on this week's Carrier Wrap. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief at RCR Wireless News. Well, I recently returned from the Competitive Carrier Association's annual convention in Seattle, where policy, 5G, and the Internet of Things were significant topics of conversation. While the event caters towards the domestic market's smaller wireless players, most keynote addresses, educational sessions, and conversations were on topics that are increasingly on the minds of all operators. To kick off the look back at the event, we will start with an interview I had on site with CCA President and CEO Steve Barry, who touched on a number of topics impacting the organization's members. Let's take a look at the interview now.
Okay. All right, this is Dan Meyer with RCR Wireless News at the CCA annual convention here in Seattle. I'm here with Steve Barry, President and CEO of CCA. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Glad you're here and glad you're live streaming all our events. Thank you so very much.
It's always popular. And again, some great keynotes today. I'm sure we have lots of viewers for the keynotes, good speakers. We'll get to those in a minute here. But first of all, we're in Seattle this time, a new city, I think, for you guys. I haven't been here before with you guys, so a new event for you guys, new city at least.
Oh, absolutely. And, T-Mobile kept saying, why don't you come to Seattle? Well, we came to Seattle, and they've really stepped up to the plate. As you know, last night we did a ball game.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think everybody had a great time. It was a great sort of a one-of-a-kind network opportunity. Every person that was registered for the show got a ticket to the ball game.
Can't beat that.
We had the commissioners from the FCC there, a lot of our carriers. So, yeah, it was a really nice event.
Yeah, and again, I know you guys were in Nashville earlier this year, Seattle this time. It's kind of interesting, you guys are at least moving into some new cities that, traditionally you go to all these trade shows and it's always Vegas, Orlando, whatever it's going to be. It's great to kind of see you guys moving around different places. And again, with your membership, it's you guys can kind of tap into that as well, which is great.
Yeah, and we have regional carriers,
yeah.
And I don't know if you heard, but Dan Boyette, who is from GCI in Alaska, said,
I know.
This is one time I only took one plane ride.
Yeah.
He said, turnabout is fair play. Well, we try to move the shows around, and not only does it give you a bit different perspective from the regions, but it gives our members an opportunity to try a new restaurant out as well as a new venue. And they've joined it. We're going to go back to Vegas, I think, in the spring.
Not to downplay Vegas. Vegas is great too.
Yeah. Caesar's Palace, they just renovated, so it's it'll be sort of the new Caesar Palace.
Oh, cool.
So, but then we'll go back to Texas after that.
Oh, there you go. Okay, moving around then. Very good. No, it's great. No, again, and Seattle's a great town too, so it's good for that. Well, again, I know again from the keynotes this morning, there were you guys had Chairman Wheeler up there, Commissioner Clyburn was up there, Neville Ray from T-Mobile as well. But I want to talk a bit about the chairman. He'd mentioned that by the end of the year he wanted to bring up some more issues or another notice of proposed
rulemaking.
Rulemaking, that one NPRM on data roaming. I know that's been a hot topic for you guys for years and years and years.
Right.
You got some relief a few years ago on it, but it sounds like he's trying to bring it back up. I guess what's your view on the importance of that, and I guess what are you guys maybe hoping to get from that, from the chairman doing that?
Well, as you know, it's extremely important. If you're a small carrier, you don't have a nationwide network that you own. Yeah. You need to have roaming relationships so that your customers can have nationwide service. And so it's critical to the small carriers. The FCC has received several complaints over the last years about roaming and the disproportionate ability to get or not get access to data roaming. So we think that was music to our ears, as you heard a clap from the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Small carriers understand that you're going to have fair, reasonable, economically sustainable relationships, and that's what the FCC is looking at. And I think it's going to be a good development for everyone. So we're glad to hear that, and I'm very pleased that the FCC is looking at our policy agenda and saying, maybe that's something we should take another gander at. So we're looking forward to NPRM on data roaming.
Yeah, and there's also, I know they had a CEO panel a little bit later on. I know some of the CEOs from your carrier members were saying that, hey, it was great to see the FCC really almost take a lot of your own, pretty much your guys' agenda and taking it to heart, really, which was great to see. I know Slayton Stewart from Carolina West had mentioned that on the data roaming aspect, he said it's one of the few things in the country where the wholesale rates are higher than the retail rates when it comes to data roaming. And so obviously to see that kind of being taken to heart by the FCC and taking the next step with that seems like a great move. And again, the data becoming so more important nowadays than ever. That's a big part. So.
Well, Chairman Wheeler made the point that if we're going to get to 5G,
yeah.
you're going to have data roaming relationships. You're going to have them sustainable in a higher, data access world.
Yeah.
A lot more information and data going across the network. So, I think this is sort of precursor to how do you get to 4G LTE, VoLTE, 5G.
Yep.
And so if we can help open up that opportunity for small carriers to have reasonable relationships nationwide on roaming, I think we're going to benefit consumers across the board. Quite frankly, there's going to be so much demand for service data and services associated with it. No one or two carriers is going to be able to provide it all.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have a network of network carriers working together to get that done. I think that's one of the things you heard in the CEO panel, which I think was quite telling when you've got some really innovative CEOs that were up there saying, we're going to have to figure out a way to work smarter if we're going to provide better services to our customers. So, we're going into a new era of telecom policy.
Yeah, and again, I know some of your larger members with Sprint and T-Mobile, for instance, I know they're being definitely more open towards the roaming as well. I know Neville Ray had mentioned that, hey, he was trying to be, trying to tell the carriers, hey, we're going to be partners with you guys, the best partners for roaming. So it does seem like having your two largest members also being very open to all this has got to be a big part of it as well. So
well, it was heartening to hear our largest two members talk about the need to have smaller carriers operating and providing coverage for them.
Exactly.
And I think that's sort of the key is Sprint has over 31 of their roaming partners, what they call their rural partnering program. T-Mobile has a lot of our GSM carriers that not only have roaming relationships but partnering relationships. And I think that's what you're seeing is as you get from roaming to a data IP world, you need more than just a roaming relationship. You need business partners that can bring the quality of service and the same types of services in your home network to the roaming relationship. And so it's a lot more complex. You need a little more in-depth coordination.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing I know the commissioner or chairman brought up too was on the term of I think it was business data services.
Yeah, BDS.
The BDS. I know that's special access. That's been a hot topic. I know it's been one of those things that's kind of been there. It seems like forever and ever. It never seems to get resolved. I know there's been work behind the scenes on trying to get it done. Are we going to make some progress, do you think, on this, or is that still one of those things that because it does involve some large operators who are very hesitant to work in this space, it seems like there's a lot of pushback.
Well, it's been 612 weeks, 4,282 days. No, who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting, right?
Really, it's over 12 years, and a huge data collection. It's interesting. The action was first originally brought by AT&T when they were a long-distance carrier, saying people are charging outrageous rates for us to, and so I think it's time to address the issue. I think Chairman Wheeler and the FCC, I think they're getting it right, and that is if you have reasonable data roaming relationships, data access relationships, you can bring the 5G world closer to the consumer faster.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at is how can we do that? And I think the FCC is on the right path. And it was very heartening to hear him say that we wanted to take action on that before the end of the year. One of our priorities that we've had, along with the other big priority that he talked about was USF.
Yes, exactly.
Mobility too.
Yeah.
I think you probably heard a few claps that he was going to address that issue.
Yep.
Especially the fact that he said, he wants to work with CCA, wants to work with the small carriers and make sure that we have a transition that doesn't flesh cut so that consumers are not left without wireless coverage and wireless carriers are not left sort of holding the bag. One of the things I've said to Mr. Wheeler and members of Congress is, you don't want rusty towers, abandoned towers as the solution to your efforts to reform USF and Mobility too. So we're going to work very closely with the FCC and hopefully find rational, reasonable transition to something that's extremely important for small carriers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does seem like that transition part of it was a big a big part of that. I know the CEO panel I was talked about there as well. I think they're very kind of looking at that as well to see what kind of how that progresses. I know there'll be maybe some controversy there how it all works out, but some sort of resolution would be good on that at some point here, I think. So.
And they the legacy program was drawing down.
Yes.
We sort of arrested that drawdown at 60%.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and you heard Commissioner Clyburn saying that we need to make sure we get this right. Also, I think at 60%, having an opportunity to figure out the best solution on how you transition, I think that's going to help not only the carriers but obviously the consumer.
Yeah.
We've had instances of small carriers not being able to meet their economic commitments and shutting down networks in rural America, and we don't want that to happen again.
Sure. And again, a lot going on with the FCC. Obviously, they have a few more months until the end of the year here, and there is an auction going on as well. I know we've talked about this 600 megahertz auction for it seems like years now, and now we are, since last time we talked, we're actually now in the middle of it. I mean, we're at stage 2 now. The first stage we saw the broadcasters obviously want a lot of money for the spectrum. Not quite what the demand was there for it, but now we're in stage 2 of the whole process, and we'll see how that progresses. I guess what's CCA's view on how it's progressed to this point so far?
Well, you're right. It has been a long time coming. I think we got the rules right so that small carriers can actually bid and win.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not so disappointed that. I mean, this auction, the first round, which did not meet the $88+ billion, actually was the second highest auction bid
Still was, exactly,
in the history. Yes. So I think 114 megahertz of clearing will be the next round.
Yep.
I hope that the broadcasters recognize that the spectrum is valuable, but wireless carriers have to actually, after they bid on it, they have to build out networks to service customers. So I'm hoping, if not 114, then we go to 96 megahertz. So the goal is, as fast as we can, to get that spectrum in the hands of wireless carriers that are going to provide new services to consumers. Yeah.
So again, still a few more months probably in that whole process, and it might even go down some more. We'll see how it all kind of levels out at some point. But right. Just at the end of the day, it's all about getting it out there to the carriers, and hopefully they can use it within a 39-month period and kind of get it out there.
Yeah.
So,
and then we got the challenge of how do you repack and how you transition and move the broadcasters out. So, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, the auction's almost the easiest part of it, really. I mean, the auction's complicated, but it's a lot more to happen as well.
Yeah,
so
that's absolutely right.
So. Anyway, and then maybe a final topic before I let you go, and I think we're both going to lose our voice here at some point, but I know you guys always have stuff on your plate, new things you're looking at doing. I guess what's CCA's kind of, what's on your plate over the next 6 to 12 months? What's kind of the hot topic for you guys that you're going to be focused on there in D.C.?
Well, some of the issues we just talked about are still first and foremost. But we're also looking at spectrum frontiers, making sure that, this administration or this FCC has provided almost 11,000 megahertz of spectrum available for 5G type services. We haven't figured out what it's going to be used for, how it's going to be provided. We've already submitted comments saying, spectrum aggregation rules should apply. That our bottom line is, as you make this new spectrum available to carriers, you need to make sure that all carriers have an opportunity to bid on it, that it's rolled out in ways that you have spectrum aggregation limits for each block of spectrum, so that one or two carriers can't buy up all that one particular block of spectrum and dominate the new services that could be developed on that. So if you have an opportunity for multiple carriers to win multiple licenses, and as we do that, you roll out different slices of spectrum, because what we think is in the 5G world, you're going to have certain types of spectrum slices provide certain types of services.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you don't want to be frozen out of a new type of service. So, it's going to be complicated, but I think everyone at the FCC and quite frankly our vendors and our suppliers, the large companies that provide the same services to the largest carriers, are all of the opinion that ecosystems that allow for many people to share in the devices and the networks that are going to be rolled out, that's the best and highest use of the spectrum. So that's a huge issue for us, and obviously we'd like to see the BDS decision as soon as possible. And The other thing is, got this new thing called election.
An election going on as well. I mean,
And
there's
we
a lot
got-
happening in D.C.
And you know yourself that after the election's over, there's going to be musical chairs all over the place. And again, another round of who's going to be the chairman, who's going to be a commissioner, who's going to be chair of a committee on the Hill.
Yep.
A lot of
stuff
new
on,
things.
behind the scenes stuff. I mean, that's stuff that we talk about occasionally, but you're right. That's stuff that you guys deal with on a daily basis there, and that's going to be a huge impact on what kind of happens over the next 6 months. Because you're right, if it's a whole different administration, then that's a wholesale change.
Yeah.
Even if it's just same party, there's still changes there as well. I mean, there's just so much that can happen for you.
Well,
guys.
yeah, even within the same party, you're going to have chairmanships change.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, both the House and the Senate had indicated, we need to take a look at the 96 acts, and we need to restructure and maybe rewrite. And so that's going to be a huge challenge for the smaller carriers.
Yeah, a lot going on, that's for sure. Well, hey, Steve, always great talking to you. Thanks so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Well, as mentioned, one of the big themes coming out of the show was 5G. In fact, T-Mobile US CTO Neville Ray took to the stage for a keynote presentation where he provided an update on the carrier's 5G plans, as well as offered up LTE roaming and VoLTE support for CCA's carrier members. Let's take a look at that energetic presentation now.
Of joining us today. As I told you, she certainly knows rural and regional issues, and I think she demonstrated that graphically. So now, next, let me get to our next great speaker, a virtual, I call it a fountain of network wisdom. You might say our keynote lineup this morning has been an embarrassment of riches, but I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Next, we're going to have Neville Ray, the EVP and CTO of T-Mobile. Now, T-Mobile has proven itself to be one of the foremost policy leaders in the competitive carrier ecosystem. They've been wonderful to work with us on all of our policy issues before the FCC and Congress. So just say thank you to them. Why don't we just turn over to Neville Ray, and we'll have a warm welcome for Neville Ray and the T-Mobile team.
What we're about is changing wireless for good.
Why does wireless have to be stuck in the 20th century?
Everything we do is designed to turn the wireless industry on its head.
So now you understand a little bit clearer why our competition is scared shitless. There's been a huge transformation on the network. It opens up a ton of new doors for us. Fastest growing, and the most advanced LTE today is coming from T-Mobile.
When you ask customers what they want and you give it to them, they love it.
So welcome to Seattle. This is the home of T-Mobile, so welcome to our house. Very proud Seattle residents, and a lot of us are housed here in Seattle and compete aggressively across the United States from here, so welcome. I'll start with a big thank you to Steve and the CCA team. Great to see this crowd here today, and great to see CCA going from strength to strength. We're a key member and a key supporter of everything that CCA is about, and we work very hard to support and drive forward the CCA mission. I'm following two very distinguished speakers in Chairman Wheeler and Commissioner Clyburn. But two things really resonated me through the discussion there. Competition and spectrum. And two things that are very, very close and dear to not just my heart, but the heart of many of us in the room here, and to CCA. And so, great to hear, Chairman Wheeler talk about, the 600 megahertz auction that's currently underway. A major and transformative event for the US wireless industry. My opinion and the opinion of many others. And I applaud his kind of fortitude and vision to make sure that we can drive, ubiquitous wireless and LTE service, across the US marketplace. And the auction that's currently underway is a key foundation in enabling, the future of wireless and all the great things that we can do forward in this industry, as we heard from, Commissioner Clyburn. But in the words of John Cleese, and exposing my British heritage now for something completely different. So we're in the T-Mobile segment. And as you saw in that sizzle reel to start with, we're a very loud and proud business for many reasons. And I'm going to give you kind of 3 slices of information about T-Mobile today. The first one is going to be about our company, kind of a little bit of where we've been, but more importantly, where we are, and then, where we're heading. And I'll divvy that up. We're going to talk about our business and where we've come from and where our results are right now. Then we'll talk a little bit about network and kind of my shop and my major responsibilities in the T-Mobile business. And then towards the end, and probably most importantly, I want to talk about 5G today. And I think we're all kind of wondering and confused, what is this 5G thing, really about? And I want to share some thoughts, some ideas, and some really good visuals and video that we put together to try and bring to life what we think, 5G is really about and what it should be about for the US consumer. But let me start with the mission and goals of, this T-Mobile business. We started what we call our Un-Carrier journey. We christened ourselves, we don't want to be a carrier. We're very different. We're Un-Carrier. We wanted to break the practices of this industry, which have been dominated by 2 major players in this industry. We know who they are. And so when you look at the position of this industry, many of the practices, we knew there were a lot of things that had to change. And we're proud of this statement up on this slide, changing wireless for the good. We absolutely believe that's the case. How have we done that? Well, you've probably been living under a rock if you haven't heard about our Un-Carrier moves and all of the things that we've done over a series and cascade of Un-Carrier moves over the last 3 years. We're now on Un-Carrier 12. And you can read the words on the page, but what's underneath all of this is about trying to drive a level of transparency and trust for the customer and wireless operator relationship which has not existed in this country and in many parts of the world. Customers have been confused about what they're buying, what their commitments are, how they can change what they're in. What is this data thing they're buying? I go to Un-Carrier 12, our latest move. We want to kill, and we are killing, the data bucket. We sell a service. We've been guilty of it. We're moving away from it now. We've been selling a service in gigabytes. Survey says 80% of US consumers have no friggin' idea what a gigabyte is, let alone what it does or what it can do. Customers just want to use their devices, right? They want transparency. They want a billing relationship. They want trust. They want to know they can change their device when they need and want to. That's what the Un-Carrier movement has been about. And 1 through 12, we have been dismantling customer pain points in this industry. Now, some have been copied, some copied badly, but some have been outrightly copied by the big 2. And that's the great point. Back to that, the first slide, changing wireless for the better. We know there are many of these moves, overages, ugly overages on data, contracts, many of these things that were common in this industry for the last 2 decades, we've all lived through them, are now going away. This industry is changing and moving at pace, and we are finally moving into an era where consumers start to trust wireless carriers. That's a big, big shift, and we believe we're driving a lot of that industry change. So what happens when you do all this stuff? Well, funny enough, customers come flocking to your doors. And so if you look at our results for the last 3.5 years, we are guaranteed, hands down, America's fastest growing wireless company, and by a big margin. If we look at our customer growth itself, here's the numbers. So just over 3 years ago, 33 million customers. Here we are today, 67.4 million. Well, that's not today. That's an old data point. But that's the only one I can disclose because that's the end of our last reported quarter. Incredible growth. So all those things we've done and the transparency and customer trust that we've built, what is that resulting in? It's resulting in customers flocking to our doors. Customers like what they see. They smell trust and transparency, and they see a relationship which they want to have with a wireless carrier for one of the most important things they buy in their life, their connectivity and personal connectivity services. So it's not just growth, right? What's been happening in the competitive set? And this is really looking at our major competitors here in the US. Of that 67.4 million, and the kind of doubling in size, you can see here postpaid phone growth. And we all know how important that is. Prepaid growth is not on this slide. That's a massive piece of our success with our Metro PCS brand and what we've established there over the last 3 years. Incredible growth on the prepaid side, really cleaning the clock of everybody in the industry. But we're doing the same thing on postpaid. So this is, if you look at the last 3 years, all of the growth in the industry, it's come one way. Over 10 million postpaid phone subscribers have come to T-Mobile, and you can see the story for the competitive set in the aggregate. So things are working. Not only is the growth moving for this business, but the levels of satisfaction are actually really moving north. So this is a set of data from Nielsen Global Insights, well, a data point, not a set. The number one satisfied customers in the wireless industry are now coming from T-Mobile. And the most likely brand to be recommended amongst the big four in the United States is T-Mobile. So it's not just a growth story, it's not just a discounting story, it's driving satisfaction, and we all know what happens when you drive satisfaction. You get great churn, and that also helps tremendous growth. So let's move on to the network story a little bit, and kind of my stronger, home turf. I always talk about T-Mobile, the fastest LTE, fastest growing LTE, and the most advanced LTE network in the US. And I want to just kind of unfurl that statement a little bit for you. So we're very proud to be the fastest wireless network. This is 10 quarters in a row. Another one's about to go in the bag. I'm sure there are folks in AT&T and Verizon that spit blood every morning looking at that data. And it's been in their face, and we love it. Why do we love it? Because it's driving competition. It's driving investment. How did little old T-Mobile come from nowhere and build the fastest LTE network in the United States? With all their gazillions and billions of dollars in investment they're so proud to talk about all the time, they're still second and third, right? So there's a really important consumer message in terms of how we've advanced not just our LTE story, but the performance of our LTE network. And accompanied with, this tremendous speed story is our footprint. And so the graphic kind of unfurling, behind me here, this is a truly remarkable story. I've been building this network in T-Mobile one way or another for 2 decades. It's actually 21 years I've been working on this network. And I can tell you we've achieved more in the last 3 years in terms of footprint growth and LTE rollout than I'd ever seen in the prior 16, 17 years. Our footprint is now 312 million covered people across the United States. Very similar to a Verizon number and an AT&T number. And we've come from nowhere. A very, very rapid rollout. The last time I talked to this group, I was talking about the importance of low-band spectrum and the 600 megahertz auction. Well, the time in between, we actually secured some low-band, 700 megahertz, A block, many of you here use that spectrum. And a lot of the geographic footprint expansion that we've secured is through having low-band spectrum finally in our hands. So from no LTE to over 300 million people covered with LTE. Inside the last 12, 15 months, we added 1 million square miles of LTE coverage. So that number now rapidly approaching 2 million square miles. US is a big place. There's still a long way to go. Now, part of that footprint story for us is members in the room here. And we want to be the best damn roaming partner you could ever wish for. But we need LTE. Back to the chairman's statement, LTE is table stakes now. And that's where we need to be. We want to have LTE across the entire nation. And we want to do that through great roaming relationships as well as organic footprint. And you can see there's still a few gaps on this map. Some of them are being filled by folks in the room here for us through great roaming arrangements. We want to continue that. We want to grow that. We don't need to build all of this network ourselves. And we will be the best damn partner you've ever had, guaranteed. Because that transparency that we work through with our customers, we take through all of our business practices. And I'm very proud to be a very strong advocate of working with our roaming partners effectively to build a ubiquitous nationwide footprint. I want to touch all those places that Minion Clyburn said we can't get to. These underserved LTE areas, underserved wireless areas. Why can't we tackle that? That's the level of ambition and goal at T-Mobile. Very different from where we were 3-4 years ago, but we're now in a position where we could get to that. And I don't care about the old CDMA, GSM thing. If we get LTE up, we have VoLTE. 60% of the calls on the T-Mobile network today are on VoLTE. That is a global leading stat. That's the information I have from my suppliers. So nobody in the US understands VoLTE better, can help you more than T-Mobile can on how to launch and build VoLTE, and how to make a great service for voice work on voice over LTE. So open door, right, from T-Mobile on all those fronts. So the other major dimension of our network, speed is a great proxy for capacity on the network. And we love to talk about this network and how we built it for unlimited. Back to my opening comments, customers don't want to worry about how much data they're consuming. It is impossible to predict. Customers get it wrong all the time. And major competitors, the big two, every time a customer gets it wrong, they've been dinging them with charges. That is no way to run a trustworthy and trustful customer relationship. It makes no sense. So we work very, very hard to build a very powerful, capable network. We combined with Metro. We built the most dense network in the United States. We have more spectrum per customer than the big two. We have more cell sites per customer than the big two. We've pushed the limit on every LTE feature that's out there, be that RCS, EVS, Wi-Fi calling, MIMO, carrier aggregation, VoLTE, VoLTE, you name it. T-Mobile is pushing the envelope so we can not just deliver great innovation and features and capability on the network, but we can also deliver great efficiency. We all know spectrum is scarce, and we have a very, very proud record of delivering a very powerful LTE network. So that's absolutely key. Our competition is sitting out there, and the big two, and they really don't want to go here at all, right? They hate this unlimited thing. They want to be able to charge the snot out of their customers when they run over on their video or whatever it might be. And so we stand for something different in the LTE space, and what I'll talk about in a second on 5G. But let's have a little bit of fun. We are releasing today, I think it went out on Twitter this morning, but it will hit the TV tonight, so you guys are getting kind of a special preview of our latest advertising coming straight at our good old friends Verizon.
This isn't the country of just okay, which is why we are introducing a better network than ever before. Behold, the future of wireless is here.
Data limits? Some future. Verizon's network isn't better if it's limited. Don't let them fool you. T-Mobile now covers 99.7% of Verizon's customers. Switch to the network built for unlimited data for everyone.
All right, so we're going to have some fun. That was a little quiet. I don't know if we're going to have to fix the audio. It's a little quiet for the Un-carrier folks in the room. Anyway, I wasn't looking for applause. I was talking to the AV guys, I promise. But I mean, we are going to keep the big two honest. That's another big part of what we do. That's a big major theme for us as a business. So I don't know if you've seen that recent ad, and there's a parody there at the beginning of it. But they're talking about next-gen network, right? They said next-gen network and next-gen iPhone. So I do this thing on my fingers called counting, right? And so we got 4G today. So Verizon's now trying to tell us that they've got next-gen, which would be 5G. And they're saying they've got that today. I think that's BS, right? I think we all know that. Maybe when they launch MIMO and QAM, they'll call that 6G or 7G. So maybe by the time it comes when we can really launch 5G services, that'll be 10G, right? I mean, the Verizon guys have got to stop this BS. It's confusing for customers. calling what they're doing now next gen. We launched our carrier ag services in 2014. Stuff is old news. Anyway, enough beating on Verizon. Let's move the discussion to where are we heading in this 5G space. And so, a few minutes left. But this is an important section of the discussion for me and for our business. Much of those LTE features and capabilities that I talked about, they are truly foundational for the 5G network of tomorrow. So when you think about what does 5G bring, it brings massive bandwidths of spectrum. So today, as an industry, we are just managing to cobble together 2 or 3 LTE carriers. That's what two-way and three-way carrier aggregation is all about. We run our business on just over 80 megahertz nationally. We're talking about a gigabit bandwidth of spectrum. So really understanding how to aggregate large volumes of spectrum is something we haven't done a lot of as an industry, but we're going to prove and understand it better as we go forward here. Massive MIMO. I talked about we're doing 4x4 today. We are going to talk about much higher order MIMO, 64 by 64 and higher, massive antenna density, supported because the spectrum frequencies are small, so the antennas are small. Beamforming, all of these technologies that are going to be critical for 5G network rollout and 5G services, we are working and putting the foundation in the ground today. Everybody's going to compete. We're all going to compete in the US on LTE for the next 5 to 10 years, guaranteed. 5G is going to come on top. It's going to come on top as a layer, probably first in small cells. But the underlying networks are going to be LTE and LTE advanced. And we are going to be pushing the envelopes really, really hard to make sure that we are ready and prepared for 5G. So we've been pretty quiet on the 5G subject and 5G story, right? We've been listening to a lot of the noise that's out there. And so that doesn't mean for us that we're not doing anything. We've been extremely busy in trials. We took Commissioner Clyburn actually yesterday to our facilities here in Bellevue. We showed her mobile 5G links operating close to 4 gigabits per second, fixed links operating close to 8 gigabits per second, terrific latencies, performance on 5G systems that are getting close from a radio perspective to becoming real. Now, there's a lot of work to happen with standards and so on. We're very active, and we partner very heavily with Deutsche Telekom, who is one of, obviously, the leading operators globally on the 5G track. So we are doing a huge amount of work to drive forward on a 5G vision. But let's talk about what is this 5G thing. And so I see kind of this polarized thing right now in the industry where on one side we've got Verizon talking about, well, 5G is kind of like fixed broadband. It's fixed broadband substitution. You know, we're going to figure out how to wirelessly save cost on delivering and closing off the last mile to the house, to the home, to the business. Well, quite frankly, I think that's a complete yawn. Maybe there's something in there economically, if we can prove it all out. A lot of physics and engineering to go into 5G radio to make sure it's economic, and a lot of densification needed to overcome propagation on high-band spectrum. But maybe there's something there. But is that 5G? Is that what 5G is all about? If that's all that 5G is about, we should all pack up our bags and go home, right? That's not what 5G is about. On the other side, we hear about connected things. And there's a lot in IoT. I still don't like that things term, right? The last thing I ever want in my life is my fridge talking to me, telling me to bring milk home, right? I am so unexcited about the things. What has driven and built this great industry? It's consumer services, right? Look at how we've transformed people's lives over the last 10 years. The younger generation, the demographic different from most of us in the room, how they communicate, where, when, the formats of communication, the media they consume, the Snapchats, the Facebooks, everything moving to mobile and to video. The internet has completely moved into the mobility space, and with it goes content. And that's the truly exciting thing about what's happening with 5G. As we look forward, we believe the 5G story is all about, and has to be all about, the consumer. What are the consumer services that are going to light up this industry and bring customers to all of our doors? It's going to encompass mobility for sure. That's a foundation stone of what we do as wireless players. But think about a world where these corners of, the 5G story, really high internet speeds, right? Great data throughput rates, massive capacity, really low latencies, great battery life, to name a few. Think about how those things can transform how people communicate and live their lives today. That's the stuff that starts to get really exciting. Can we bring virtual reality and augmented reality to life, finally, in a way that the wireless networks can support? Take it off the couch at home and bring it into true consumer services. They're the things that really excite me. I'm running out of time, and I'd love to stand up and talk for the next 10 minutes about 5G use cases, because I think there's thousands between fixed broadband and basic IoT. And it's those use cases that are going to light up this industry and bring customers to our doors and delight our customers. But rather than talk about it, we've spent a bunch of time putting together some of these concepts in a video. And this is visionary, okay? This isn't an infomercial for something I'm going to try and sell tomorrow. I'm not Verizon. I'm not going to say I'm going to deliver 5G in 2017 and then spend the next 12 months backtracking from the subject, okay? This is a 2020 plus type story. What can happen in the 5G space? So let's run the video, please.
The world changes fast. From the very beginning, we built our network for the future of wireless. Just imagine how we'll be able to harness technology to make it work for people. It's what you need, the split second you need it. It's so seamless, the technology disappears, erasing language barriers as we speak, and getting the detailed information you need. We built our network to make the future possible. 5G is coming. And with it, innovation that seems inevitable, yet essential the second we experience it. And experiencing the things we care about becomes more meaningful than we ever imagined. Because the future of wireless is about the actual moment, in the moment. Wherever you are, wherever you want to be. The Uncarrier will keep building the future for you, one technology first at a time.
What do you think? Kind of cool, right? So I'm pretty much done, but we spent a lot of time putting that video together, thinking about edgy and exciting use cases. Think about that real-time translation thing. Why can you do that? Because you've got millisecond latencies. Can't do that otherwise. You can't do that on networks today, that instant translation thing. Think about a VR environment where you could connect with your daughter or your son or your wife, whatever it might be, and actually immerse yourself in their environment, like was demonstrated, in that concert video. These are all feasible and possible extensions of the technology. And for me, they start to grab what this industry is all about. It's about the consumer and how we can really enrich consumers' lives. So that's a quick view of T-Mobile. We've been really busy for the last 3 years. Hopefully that resonates from a competitive perspective with you guys. And then you can see behind me, this is where we go in the next 3. So a lot more to come from the Uncarrier. Thank you for your time and patience today. Appreciate it.
Neville, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. It was great. Good to see you. Thank you, Neville, and that was not only informative but highly entertaining. Thank you for showing us a little of the future. It's amazing what this Uncarrier has accomplished in a few short years. I think we should dub him the network magician, since he's done all this from 20 years ago. Thank you, Neville. Next, I think we have to do some stage alteration. Why don't you come on up?
Well, we have a number of other video highlights from the CCA event, including keynote remarks from FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler and Commissioners Mignon Clyburn and Ajit Pai, a roundtable discussion of CEOs from C Spire, AT International, Cellcom, and Carolina West Wireless, and a fireside chat with longtime mobile telecom veteran John Stanton. So check out the RCR TV site to view those highlights. Well, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check us out again next week when we speak with Dan Hayes from PwC's Strategy and Division to discuss IoT network deployment and regulatory challenges. Thanks for watching.